Welcome to Engagement Fundraising, where you'll learn how busy fundraisers like you are generating more major and planned gifts at lower costs. Brought to you by iMarketSmart.com, the software and services company that helps nonprofits raise more money more efficiently.
Many people might say that they don't care about the tax incentives that they could get from making a donation, but then you might see later online they're spending a heck of a lot of time clicking on the pages that talk about the tax incentives. So the digital body language completes the picture and helps the fundraiser collect that discovery information to understand how to communicate with that individual much more relevantly and contextually ongoing in the future.
Hi there, welcome to Engagement Fundraising. I'm Tim Chen, Marketing Solutionist at MarketSmart. On today's episode, I sit down with Greg Warner to discuss donor surveys, why donors like them, how best to utilize them, what questions to ask, and much more. Not sure what engagement fundraising is or how to use donor surveys? Well, you will soon. How's it going, Greg?
It is awesome. You know that.
I know that, yeah.
You know why?
It's Friday?
It is Friday. I'm so excited. And my daughter's graduating from high school on Monday, so I won't be here.
Okay, that's good to know.
Good to know.
My birthday's Monday, so I'll be.
I'm gonna have to miss your.
I'll be 30. Yeah, big.
I'll be missing my daughter's graduation to attend your birthday. No,
absolutely not. No.
Reverse that.
Reverse that. Yeah.
Okay. Happy Friday, Tim.
Happy Friday. So the value of surveys. Where do you start? Why do surveys? What's the broad value in them, generally speaking?
You know I love surveys. I love surveys.
You do?
I do. I love surveys. I get surveys from Best Buy. I take the survey. I get surveys. I bring in my car. I take the survey. I love taking surveys. People love taking surveys.
Yeah, I like taking surveys depending on... If I feel like it'll be just lost in the shuffle, I'm getting a survey from Best Buy and there's no benefit. There's not like some prize at the end and it's just going to get lost in the shuffle. More individualized surveys, of course, more likely to respond to.
Here's the thing about surveys. And first of all, when I first started talking about surveys, it was because in the private sector, businesses use surveys like crazy. I mean, right? We all see them.
We do. I ordered a Papa John's pizza this week, and 2 hours after I'm done eating it, take this 1 minute survey. A couple days later, I didn't fill out the survey. You know, it's only a minute. You should really take the survey.
And why do they do that? Why do you think for-profit companies survey so much? Good ones.
They need to find out what they're screwing up on, right?
Yeah.
Or doing good and make that even better.
Also, what they found, and this was from a study that FedEx did many years ago, is that a customer that is upset and or angry, and by the way, can voice that anger very easily on social media these days, a customer that is upset, that gets their needs attended to and gets whatever issue upset them rectified quickly, becomes a exponentially more loyal customer, exponentially more loyal, and they will share their positive experience, much more likely to share their positive experience. So what are people always talking about in the nonprofit sector is retention, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's take it from the for-profit sector, and remember, that's where I come from. This company was born from doing sales lead generation and marketing for private companies. And the survey is a fantastic tool, not only for after the sale, but before the sale for generating leads.
And also it can be used in the for-profit sector of seeing what interest levels are like in a certain kind of product prior to development. Similar to in a nonprofit sector, they could be developing campaigns based on how they want to be reached and involved with their organization.
Right. So let's back up just a minute. Surveys clearly are being used in the private sector a lot more than they're being used in the nonprofit fundraising sector. But if you pick up almost any book, not any book, but so many books about fundraising, and if you talk to the experts, everybody says you need to survey your donors. But nobody ever does it. Why? Well, there's actually a lot of good reasons. Number one is that oftentimes in the fundraising meeting, somebody will sit there and say, well, I get asked to take surveys all the time and I never take them. So therefore, our donors won't want to take them. And that's what we call anecdotal evidence, which you should never use as reasoning for doing anything.
You may not do what everyone else does, and you're just one small data point.
And not only that, but we're talking about a donor survey for the donors of an organization, and that individual sitting in that meeting is usually the person who has never donated to the organization for which they work. And we would hope that that person cares about their own organization and therefore they would take their own donor survey, but unfortunately that what I'm saying is that's usually the person in the room who doesn't care that much about the organization and doesn't donate. I don't know if that's really true. I'm just making that up, but I think it could possibly be true. The bottom line is that anecdotal evidence is not the way. Truth is that people love taking surveys, and they are more likely to take a survey for a company or a nonprofit that they care about, and they actually want to have that dialogue. They want to provide feedback because they want to help. If they like the product or the service of the nonprofit, they want to make it better. They care. They're going to take it. And not only that, but it's an unbelievable self-qualifier, because if they lean in and they take the survey, they're basically saying, I care more. Here I am. I did it. I took the survey. That's an indicator. We monitor certain engagement experiences, and that's why I call it engagement fundraising. And the two types of engagements that we monitor and track and capture here at MarketSmart with our software are what I call verbatims and digital body language. Now, surveys primarily are capturing verbatims.
Mm-hmm. Digital body language would be inferred if they didn't finish the survey.
That's true. That's digital body language. The fact that they complete the survey is digital body language too. But the great thing about surveys is you capture unbelievable verbatims. The wealth of knowledge that you can capture with a donor survey. In the old days of fundraising, and still now for many organizations, it was and is still called donor discovery. And donor discovery is used to build caseloads for face-to-face fundraising. Developing and building those caseloads with donor discovery is a very time-consuming, expensive thing to do because it requires calling people up, setting the appointments. Just calling people up and setting appointments is probably 80% of a fundraiser's job oftentimes. And then getting in front of them, getting to know them, asking the questions, and then qualifying. And guess what? After all that, the supporter might not even be quote unquote qualified. There may be no programs that really fit their needs and desires. So the survey, if it can be done on a mass scale is usually with direct mail, but it can also be done with telemarketing, and I highly recommend that. The direct mail and telemarketing are very effective ways to conduct surveys, but the most cost-effective way is by leveraging technology, and that usually includes email and online pages. And plus, what's really awesome about that is once a donor goes online and takes a survey, using our technology, we can drop a cookie on their browser so that we can track their digital body language thereafter to understand the other side, not just what they say, but what they do. Because, for instance, many people might say that they don't care about the tax incentives that they could get from making a donation, but then you might see later online they're spending a heck of a lot of time clicking on the pages that talk about the tax incentives. So the digital body language completes the picture and helps the fundraiser collect that discovery information to understand how to communicate with that individual much, much more relevantly and contextually ongoing in the future.
Will fundraisers well screen who they're sending surveys to, or should it just be sent to everybody, and should a question kind of identify if they have capacity to donate at the scale you're looking at?
So I say both. Of course, people don't have unlimited budgets. We've got clients that will use only the donor survey, but we also have clients that do wealth screening, for instance, or predictive modeling first, and then we survey the people who have found themselves on that list. Now, I'll tell you that the response rates for the predictive modeled, and I'll give a big shout out to Blackbaud's Target Analytics, because they're fantastic. Another shout out is to Lawrence Henze and Catherine Swank, who are really, really smart consultants at Target Analytics. And the results, or I should say the response rates for the lists after they've been modeled by Target Analytics, the response rates for the surveys go up.
Okay.
So, yeah. And it makes sense, because if you've got, I'll just throw out a number. I mean, if you've got 1 million donors, I know it's a humongous number, but try to make it simple. If you've got 1 million donors and you end up getting it down to 100,000 that are modeled to have wealth or some capacity or something for mid-level giving, major giving, planned giving, and then you give that to us or your service firm, and using our tech, you conduct the survey, the response rates are going to be much higher than if you just blast to all 1 million people.
Would you ask certain questions to wealthy people that you wouldn't to non-wealthy people?
No. And here's the reason, is because you just never really know. And wealth screening is not perfect. People can have hidden wealth, and the survey uncovers wealth and capacity that you can't get anywhere else. For instance, we find out who has a donor-advised fund. We now have a list of massive numbers of people. I can't actually disclose the number, but massive numbers of people we know have donor-advised funds. Also, we know who has real estate, who has business interests. Not only that they have them, but that they would like to give them away. We know who has jewelry that they'd like to give away, or collections of art collections, things of that sort.
Okay, gotcha. As far as what questions to ask, age, why not ask the year? Why ask a range? I noticed that's a common thing, just ask the range.
Well, we don't mind asking the age, but we don't want to ask somebody's exact date of birth.
Right, because that's too identifying.
Yeah, people get uneasy about giving away their exact date of birth. Now, you may say, well, we need that because we want to send them birthday cards. Well, first of all, I don't think you're really going to send them birthday cards. And second of all, I think it's a little weird that I would get a birthday card from my charity. I don't get a birthday card really from anybody else. So I'd rather that they don't send me a birthday card. It just seems a little weird. To answer your other question about the exact year, is that some people are sensitive about their age, and giving them a range
makes them feel younger a little bit.
Yeah, they can, if you're 78, you're in your 70s, it's a little bit better.
Okay, so the response rate on that question goes up by being broader.
Let's just say we want to make it as easy and comfortable as possible to get people to give us the information that we need so that we can segment them later, speak to them relevantly later, be fair to them, not pry too much. It's a give and take. It's a give and take.
Okay.
Once again, this episode is brought to you by us here at iMarketSmart.com. This week, I want to encourage everyone to download MarketSmart's ultimate how-to guide for conducting nonprofit donor surveys. You can find this at imarketsmart.com/survey report. This report will help you save time and improve efficiency, inspire supporters to give more, uncover who has wealth and capacity, tell you why people really care about your mission, update your donor records to clean up your database, and much more. All of this available for free. Get your copy by going to imarketsmart.com/survey report. That's www.imarketsmart.com/survey report.
Have you seen donor surveys with questions that have no business being asked?
Yeah, I've seen donor surveys that have been done so poorly. First is that they often have too many questions, too many words in the questions. They're too complicated. They're hard to understand. There's too many answers. It just seems unwieldy for the donor. And you need to get in and get out. The more questions you ask, the more likely people will stop taking the survey. They get tired very quickly and they say to themselves, when is this going to end? You know, you want to make sure that they feel like they're going to get over the hump really quickly and then they're on the last pass. To answer your question about questions that are not appropriate is that you have to step back and say to yourself, hold on, is this a donor survey or is this a subscriber survey? Is this a membership survey? Is this a survey to find out who wants to go to the football games at the college? Be careful about letting your PR department and your communications department and all kinds of other people get their hands and say, well, we just want to ask, since you're doing it, we just want to ask 3 or 4 questions too. And then the other department jumps in and then this department. And next thing you know, you got 27 questions and you got a mess. Understand what the purpose is. If you're doing a donor survey, I think the purpose is probably because you're going to want to raise money. And if you want to raise money, you know my philosophy on this, it's the 80-20 rule. You probably should aim to raise a lot of money. Let's not aim to ask questions about whether you'd be interested in making a monthly gift for $20. That's nice. Monthly giving is a big trend. Everybody likes that nowadays. I'm talking about making impactful, meaningful gifts among wealthy individuals. Let's not go low and just get them to agree to $20 donations when what we really want is I hate to sound crass about this, but what we really want is that Picasso that's been hanging in their office. You know, I mean, yeah.
So you mentioned the length of the survey. How many questions is like a good target for these?
Between 10 and 12 questions is really about on target. 13 or 14, you're starting to push the limit. And with every question thereafter, you're going to see a reduction in completion rates.
Okay. The design of the survey, how does it vary from print to digital? You still send out paper surveys as well as doing the online?
Yes.
Or is the goal to send a paper that directs them to a website?
Great question. So the survey, first of all, print is very, very effective. Much as I love digital everything, you got to realize that in a multi-channel world, you get an exponential rate of return when you use multiple channels. So if you use email and direct mail and maybe even online advertising, but if you combine channels, let's suppose you use 3 channels, email, Facebook ads, direct mail, right? You're not going to get 3 times the results. You'll get 10. Now, for print surveys and digital surveys, there is going to be a difference in the way that they appear and the way that people engage with them. I don't recommend lengthening the survey in print or online. I mean, it's cheaper to do it online. You could have 50 questions online, no problem. It doesn't cost any more. It's not heavier. It's not longer. No more paper is needed. But that doesn't mean that you should lengthen it, because you'll reduce your response rate either way. Now in print, the fantastic thing about print is that it can be used to drive people online. And a lot of people say, well, we don't have email addresses. Well, guess what? That's fine. When you send them the print survey, if you recommend that they take it online, many people will go online. And then online, we ask them if they'd like to opt in. I mean, frankly, at the end of every survey, even in print, we ask people if they would like to opt in to get more information. The best way to do that is not to give it an empty opt-in, which means to just say, hey, opt in and we'll send you information. No. That'll scare people away. You've got to provide value in your opt-in statement. So you've got to make sure that they feel that they're going to get something valuable for them. In fact, if you have 2 or 3 different types of e-newsletters or publications or an annual report or something, you might even want to give them options for things they can sign up or that you'll send to them if they give you their email address. So driving people online with the print survey is very successful, and it's a great way to get people to opt in and give you their email address so you can cultivate the relationship relevantly ongoing.
Gotcha. You mentioned the end of the survey, opting in. What else do you do online that you're not able to do in print?
Online is very dynamic. So think about this. With print, if they fill out the survey, they're going to drop it in the mail, and then it could be a few days before you even get it. And then you maybe call them to say thank you for filling it out, and you chat with them about their responses. Online, you can be very dynamic with your follow-up pages. So first of all, instantly, after somebody takes a survey, there should be a thank you.
Mm-hmm.
After the thank you, it should be included in the thank you, should be relevant, contextual, personalized content.
Based on their responses, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So if they say that they left a gift in their will, well, why not take it to the next step? Thank you so much. Your impact will be remembered for all time. And in fact, would you please share with us a little bit about your gift? How did you do it? Is it in life insurance? What is the amount? So on and so forth. And we get a very high completion rate for those discoveries.
Okay, gotcha. As far as choosing the right verbiage and things, how has the research of Dr. Russell James impacted developing surveys more effectively?
Great question. So when we first started with these kinds of surveys for both lead generation and for donor discovery, caseload building, the angle that I took was coming from the private sector. Now, of course, there's a lot of information in books, and I studied what the nonprofit sector was doing to understand how to craft these surveys. But nobody was really collecting massive amounts of data on the specific words, except for, as best I could find, was Dr. Russell James. And he was using online panels to take surveys so that he could study different words and how people reacted to words and sentences and phrases, determine what would inspire people to engage with the concept of planned giving, which is usually a concept that leads one to think about their own mortality and their death. And so he was trying to crack the code on how do we avoid the avoidance? You know, how do we get around the fact that people don't want to think about death? And he tested lots of words and sentences and phrases with these panels. And then through our relationship with him, we were able to improve the surveys, not just for legacy giving, but also for major giving and moving mid-level donors up and so on. But in addition to that, what we did, we ended up testing words as well and phrases and response rates, but also designs and layouts and how big a button should be, size of fonts, placement of items online, how it should work mobily. So the amount of testing that went into all of these elements, besides just the words, is really unbelievable, but it led to a massive increase in response rates, sometimes tenfold compared to what a charity might have gotten on their own.
What was one of the biggest words that was so widely used before that now really shouldn't be used?
I would say the word bequest. The word bequest is probably the worst word to ever use in bequest marketing.
And why is that? Like the word itself is just not.
Many people don't know what it means.
It's a fancy word.
It's a fancy word. And bequest. Maybe rich people know what that means, but most people who make a bequest are not rich. Anybody can leave a legacy gift. if they have any amount of wealth,
Or they have no children or no one that can inherit.
they can leave that to their children.
Yeah.
They can leave their comic book collection to their children.
Yep.
If that's all they got.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bequest.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'll tell you what, the guy who has a comic book collection and wants to leave it to his kids and that's all he's got, he does not think of that as a bequest. Not only that, but the word, besides being complicated and a little bit of a turnoff because it's sophisticated, it reminds people of death. So it's just a terrible word. Now, if you are talking in your shop with other people or with your attorney, other fundraisers, it's fine to use the word bequest, but don't use it with donors. I would say that's the biggest word. And I have to tip my hat off to Dr. Russell James for that because he discovered that.
Yeah. So after the survey's done, what do you do with all this data? Where does it go? Who looks at it? What's your end game here?
Right. So this was a big problem that needed to be solved in the sector. Nonprofits often don't do surveys. First, because someone anecdotally says that they don't work. But if they get past that, then they think about all the departments that want to jump on the bandwagon, and that'll ruin the survey. And not only that, but then all of a sudden there's going to be political infighting and people are going to get mad at each other. Next is because somebody has to sit down and write the survey. And then you have to have multiple meetings where everybody decides what words to put in there, and nobody is really an expert. So everybody's just giving their opinion about how to do it. And probably last is that the big question of what do we do with all this information, right? And it might be that their CRM can't even handle all that information. It might be that they don't have the staff to follow up with all these people. And if they find great leads for major gifts or for legacy giving, what do you do?
What do you do? Dump in an Excel spreadsheet and look at it that way? Or?
Right. And I learned this early on because one of the early surveys that we did for a customer, we actually, unfortunately, sort of drove them into a dead end. And I plead, guilty for this. I didn't realize it. I'm sorry that this happened. But, there we had a pile of hundreds of survey responses and literally thousands in a database from online, including online too. And I said to our client, what are you doing with all these? And he said, I tried to get to as many as I could, but it's been a few months now, and I kind of treating them like it never happened.
Entering that data, it's a very intensive process.
Time-consuming process.
It's not a Scantron, I don't think.
Well, if you've got a lot of money, you actually can scan it and with optical recognition software and all this. But most people are not going to want to do that. First of all, we here at MarketSmart, we will enter the data for people if they need that. But the real key is that if you can get the information in that digital realm, first by perhaps entering them manually, but especially if people take them digitally, if the information's already there, since most CRM are really not set up to handle all that, that's why we built our dashboard, is to capture all that information and help fundraisers prioritize who's a hot lead using our scoring algorithm that is based on over 25 years worth of fundraising data about who's most likely to make a legacy gift or a major gift. And the system prioritizes that, but also using our artificial intelligence, it pre-segments what people are saying and how they want to be treated. And then the last thing is that the artificial intelligence sends out automated emails. So they could be just a thank you email, or it could be a series of emails that are highly relevant, or the emails could be developed to go forever almost.
Okay, gotcha.
So that way, the fundraiser can rest assured that if they can't get to everybody, maybe they can look in the dashboard to just prioritize who's the hottest among the leads, and then all the others are going to get air support, so to speak. They're going to be covered by the automation and the artificial intelligence with highly relevant communications that, frankly, even if the fundraiser sat down and tried to type all these communications and look in the information and write highly relevant emails, there's just not enough time to do that. So the system does that for them. And then as people engage with those emails, Well, they end up prioritizing themselves so that the fundraisers can see that, well, this is the hottest among them now, and they understand. It becomes a staff optimization tool, not a hindrance, is the idea.
Okay. As far as the surveys, not working with MarketSmart, you need to go seek out some CRM that works with it, or just try to haphazard your way through Excel.
Well, it kind of becomes a jagged pill. I can understand why people didn't do donor surveys in the past.
Because you really do need a good user interface to make sense of it all.
Yeah. Surveys are only going to be effective in relation to your list. The list is the first and most important part of any direct marketing effort. And if your list is no good, if you appended emails that are, and that's usually a no-no and it's usually bad, they just don't work. If your list is not updated, you're going to get a poor response rate. So, but if you have a decent list, then you can get great success. But here's another thing, is that the best list actually happens the moment after somebody makes a donation. So think about this. If on your thank you page, after someone makes a donation, or on your receipt that they can print, or the receipt that you mail to them, if you give them an opportunity to take a donor survey there, that's a great list.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have a good list now, that flow of donors is a great list. So tap into it and survey those people.
And perhaps people giving a small $100 or $20 gift are only giving that because they don't really see the major gift opportunity yet, and maybe you'll find some within that smaller donation block.
Well, generally 5 to 10% of those people could be a major gift, or at least a legacy gift opportunity.
Yeah.
So the river of opportunity is flowing every day. The question is, are you tapping into it, or are you spending more time trying to have another bake sale?
Are there any other survey benefits that we might not have touched on yet?
One humongous benefit for nonprofits with donor surveys is that you can clean up your list. For instance, our technology is pretty advanced in this way, but this will work anyway for anybody. At the back end of the survey is usually where you say, give us your contact information. Right?
Okay. That's like the last screen, though.
That's the
before
last
the thank
screen.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, right. And of course, we want that information so we can connect the dots and understand who's taking the survey.
Yeah.
Right?
How often does someone opt out of doing that, and you just have this data with no correlation to who that person actually is?
Well, it happens too often, frankly, but that's why we developed the technology to backfill the form.
Okay.
So whether it's in print or if it's online, the trick for getting much higher completion rates is to backfill the form with their information, but also to say, hey, if this is not the right information and you want to update it, please do. Update your street address, your city, whatever it is, your email address. Maybe you don't want to get emails here, you want to get emails there. That's fine. So when the donor gives you those verbatims and they update their own information, you're cleaning up your list. And we find sometimes upwards of 10% of a list will get updated by the donors themselves. Now, think about the cost savings just in that. So it often can make the investment in a donor pay for itself, besides all the fundraising aspects. Just the fact that now you're not going to be sending direct mail to the wrong place or email.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Engagement Fundraising. If you like this show, make sure to review it on iTunes and pass it along to a colleague. If you are curious about what we do, make sure to check out imarketsmart.com and download the ultimate how-to guide for conducting nonprofit donor surveys found at www.imarketsmart.com/survey report. We'll be back next Thursday to discuss email as an engagement fundraising tool.